Warning: the video you are about to watch is the sum of my own experience. I may do things differently, I may do things wrong, but I do what works for me. So sit back and enjoy the video. Hey guys, it's Smudge here, and we're back in the A10C for part 2 of this how-to series. Now, what I'm going to do today is have another look at the startup, but this time I'm going to do it in real time, or as fast as I can do it. Now, we went over the startup in part 1, so if you've watched that, you kind of know what all of the bits and pieces do, or as far as I've explained it, you do. Then what we'll do is that we'll have a look at using the radio systems, a bit of navigation, and then we'll look at flight characteristics and then come in for land. Now, I'm not going to waffle on too much at the start here because there is quite a lot to do in this video, so this might take a little bit of time. So let's crack straight on. Now, what I'm actually going to do, I'll see if I can put up something like a counter here in the video editor. Sure, I'll see if I can do that, showing how long it takes to actually get this thing from switching on the battery power to having a completely clean board. Now, for me, the sign that an aircraft is ready to fly is when there's no more cautions, no more lights or anything like that on. So we'll do that. Now, the thing that's going to take the longest amount of time to actually clear will be the CDU alignment. So the startup I'm going to do here is going to be a little bit different, but I'll explain what I'm doing while I'm doing it. So the first thing we'll do is that we'll switch on the battery, we'll switch on the inverter, we'll switch on the fuel pump switches, the APU and APU power switch. Not quite the APU power switch yet, we'll actually wait for the APU to come on before we switch that on, otherwise you get a master caution, which is that horrible beeping noise. So we'll just wait for the APU to come on, that's on this dial here. And as soon as that gets up to about 95 to 100%, then that's the APU's up and ready. Come on, come on, come on. Yep, okay, so that's the APU up, so now we can turn on the APU power switch. What I'm also going to do now is turn on the CDU EGI switches, and I'm also going to turn on the CICU JTRS and the other one there, which is the IFFCC, which is the in-flight computer. And then immediately going to turn on the left engine. And then we'll get that spooled up. So the CDU's going through its bit, and the left engine there is starting to turn, which is absolutely fantastic. And I'll also close the canopy here just to save a little bit of time, and also make things just a little bit quieter for us. And then I'll turn on the MFDs now just to get that out of the way. And then we'll wait for the left engine to complete its startup. And you'll know that because these needles will stabilize and then everything's hunky-dory. Okay, so that's the left engine stabilized, so we'll go ahead and start up the right engine. So that's the right engine on, and then also the DTS upload's ready, so we'll start the DTS upload there. So that's the right engine coming online, so I'm just going to enable the countermeasure system. We can turn on the oxygen system, we can turn on the pitot heat, and then we can also set our lights as to however you want the lights here to be on, so that they have a little bit of a glow. Okay, and that's the DTS upload is complete, so we can bring up the TAD and the CDU page there. Now the TAV is saying no data at the moment. That's because the DTS upload line is still going on here. But as soon as that alignment gets to a certain point, then you'll get the TAD information up on there. Now we can also turn on the TGP there. So that's the right engine started there, and that's stabilized. So what we can now do is turn on the aircraft generators, turn off the APU generator, and turn off the APU. So that's the aircraft now completely running on the engines. Let's see, so we've got a few more things here. We've got the pitch and your stabilization modules, set takeoff trim, set the flaps down ready for takeoff. The TGP is now up and running, which is good. The DTS is doing its alignment. So last thing is anti-skid, and if we just look behind the throttle here, there's two switches here. Now you've got the align switch there, which is to do with the EGI, and then you've got the EAC. Now the EAC won't on, so you can turn it on, but it will keep flicking back off. Now that won't come on until your nav alignment's ready and you've selected EGI on the navigation mode switch there. And then the other thing that we can do there is arm the seat as well. So the only two lights that we've got left on the Christmas tree are the nav and EAC lights. Now, we could take off at this point. We could taxi out, take off and fly around. But with the navigation on the line, certain things in the aircraft wouldn't work. But what you can do, at the moment we're doing a ground alignment, which is the most accurate way of doing it, and it's also a good way to do it that way. You can start an in-flight alignment, but it takes between 5 and 10 minutes to align, and you can also get navigation errors, so the TAD won't align and things like that, and it can also mess up things like JDAM. Bomb impact points and things like that, because they can be unaligned. So we'll just line up the artificial standby horizon indicator thingy there. And the only thing that we're waiting on now is for the CDU to align. As soon as that's aligned, we can clear off the last two things on the board here and we're ready to go. So just trying to think if there's anything else that I need to do here. Oh yeah, so what we'll actually do at this point is that we can actually turn on the radios ready for that as well. So you set them from off to transmit receive, which is there. You've got off, TR and DF. Off is off, TR is transmit and receive, and DF is for directional finding, which is something that isn't implemented in the game at the moment. I don't know if it ever will be, but it doesn't seem to work on a lot of the modules. So that's the radios on and set there, so we're just waiting for this to be aligned. Now you know it's aligned when that INS nav ready starts flashing, which it has there, so that's great. So we can now switch the nav mode to EGI. Why is that not working? What am I missing? Oh yeah, nope. What am I missing? Why won't that switch over? Ah yes, sorry, nav mode, you frickin' moron. Then we can switch that to EGI, sorry. Then we can also flip up the switch there. So that's now the board is clean and clear and green, and the aircraft is now completely ready to go. So that's the startup in real time, and that's how long it takes to get the aircraft from cold and dead to fully up and running. Right, let's move on. Now the next thing I want to talk about is the radios. Now this is the radio panel down here, so I'm just going to pause this here on my tracker so it doesn't start going a bit crazy. So you've got three radios in this. You've got VHF1, you've got UHF and VHF2. Now VHF1 handles AM frequencies, UHF of course is ultra high frequencies, and VHF2 handles FM frequencies, and you can tell that by the frequency knobs here. Now one question that you might have when you first kind of start using this is, well, okay, now we're at Batumi. As you can see, you've got Batumi International Airport there. So this is where we are currently. Now, you know, if you're like me, you might not remember the aircraft frequencies or tower frequencies for all of the airports in the game. So rather than kind of having lists everywhere of airport frequencies, it's actually programmed into the CDU. Now to get it, you've got this button here, the second one there, which says navigation display. So you hit that, and then we could also bring this up, so we've got the CDU display screen here. You've got several things here, like alignments, you've got times, update, DTS uploads, other options and things like that here. So what you want is divert. Now the divert brings up a list of airfields here, and you can scroll up and down and about using the CDU. But the aircraft, the runway that's closest to us here is Batumi, so we can press that. Now what that does is that it brings up the runway, active runways, so you've got 13 and 31, the ILS frequencies, which is 110.30, TAC frequency, and you've got the approach and tower frequencies, which are 131. So now that we know that the tower frequency is 131, we can come back over here to the radio panel. We can then switch that to 13, and then the second one there to 1. So that's now, that frequency is now programmed into 131, and we know that this is on the AM frequency. Now the Warthog, if you're using the Thrustmaster Warthog system, life's very easy for you. This switch here is the mic switch. Now it's on a hat switch, so you've got forward, back, up, down, and then press. So press is for mic or interphone, talking to people on your flight. If you hit it forward, it brings up VHF AM, which is the VHF 1. And then as you can see there, we've got the request takeoff thing there. So we'll just make sure that our radio's turned up so we can hear them. Then we'll request taxi to runway.
1-1. Request taxi to runway.
And then if we've done this right, you should hear them respond.
1-1. Batumi, clear to taxi to runway 31.
Woohoo! So that's the radio's working. Great. I'm actually ecstatic by that because radios aren't my strong point, and I've done this a few times where I've requested takeoff and you don't hear anything, like, right, what have I done wrong now? But one thing that you will find is that you do need to select the right radio mode. Now in options, there's no default keyboard for VHF AM, FM or interphone, so you need to go in there and actually manually select the keyboard options if you need to do that there. So that's us now got permission to taxi out. So now before you can taxi, one thing that you do need to do is switch on the nose wheel steering, which is on a key on there, or you can use the keyboard binding, which I don't know what it is because I've never used it. And then you get the steering engaged here. Now unless you have the steering engaged, you won't be able to turn on the runway. So if you start taxiing out, you find that you can't actually maneuver. That's why you need to turn on the nose wheel steering. And then also down here next to the anti-skid, which needs to be on, you've got the nose wheel lights. You've got landing lights, or down for taxi light, which brings that up. But it's pretty much daytime here, so we don't really need the lights on now. And then before we'll go, what we'll do is that we'll just program the flight plan, or change that to flight plan so it shows our flight plan on the tactical awareness display. And then we can change this from other there up to position, steer point or waypoints. We'll leave that on waypoint, which will bring up waypoint information on the CDU. So we'll just turn that on to TAD because we don't really need to be looking at that information now. So what we'll do is that we'll just start taxiing out here to the runway. And again, just steering using the rudder controls with the nose wheel steering engaged. So just making sure that absolutely everything's ready to go here. Now there's another couple of things I wanted to go over as well. Now on this you've got the avionics switches and things like that there. Now the top ones here, you've got gun arm which is down, you've got safe, and then you've got gun arm and pack, which is up on this one here. So if we just actually stop the aircraft here so I don't end up killing myself. So as you can see, you've got gun arm which is down, safe, and then gun arm and pack. Now you don't want to actually switch that on to gun arm and pack until you're actually ready to fire the gun. Now what the pack does is that it kind of neutralizes the stick movement. And then when you press the trigger to the first point, so it's a two-stage trigger on the hog. The first stage actually kind of neutralizes all controls to counter the recoil of the gun firing. So it is a good idea to leave these in safe before you take off, because it can have an effect on how the aircraft handles. Then you've got your laser arm and of course the TGP's on. Now I always turn on the TGP early because it takes a few minutes for it to actually warm up. So if we turn the TGP on there, as you can see, you've got a TV screen comes up, and that's the TGP or targeting pod there. So that's the TGP on. Then if we turn that on to standby, then it rotates itself back round into a safe position. So that's the TGP. Now there's a couple more things that I like to do before I take off as well. So if we go into DCS, which is the stores management system here, you've got a few things up the top here. So you've got selective jettison, you've got your inventory. Then this button here is to do with MSL, or missiles. Now this is the control for the AIM-9s and also the Mavericks. Now the Mavericks need time to warm up, the same as what the TGP does. So what you actually need to do is go into the Mavericks, and you've got a selection here that says EO off. So you turn EO on and it starts a timer. Now it takes about 4 minutes, I believe it is, for the Mavericks to warm up. So if you're going into a short mission or a short hop, it's a very good idea to turn the EO on before you actually take off. So that's just something else I do. So we'll just continue our taxi out here, and then we'll take off and we'll have a look at some navigation and characteristics of the aircraft. So while we're here again, we'll just contact the tower on the FM frequency, and then we'll request takeoff.
Atumi, Hog 1-1, request takeoff. Hog 1-1, Atumi, you are cleared for takeoff when ready.
Cool.
300
Right, so we'll just check that the flaps are in takeoff position, which they are. We'll take up the centre line here, and then we'll just bring ourselves to a stop. Now on the takeoff roll here, now as you can see, we've got the nose wheel steering engaged. Now you can use the speed indicator on the gauge here. The minimum it will show is 50. Now as that starts going up above 50, you need to turn off the nose wheel steering. If you leave that switched on and then you put in a bit of rudder input, there's a big danger that you can tip the aircraft over. So when we start our aircraft roll here, we'll just go to full power. When the aircraft speed starts climbing up above 50, we'll switch off the nose wheel steering, and then we take off when we get to about 150 knots, I believe. So we'll go ahead and do that now. Now the A10, it is a very easy aircraft to fly, and it is very forgiving. So here we go, we're rolling up now. As you can see, we're above 50, so I'll turn off the nose wheel steering, and then just using very, very slight inputs on the rudder, I'll just try and keep ourselves pointing down the centre line as best as possible. So 120, just starting to put in a little bit of back pressure, 140, and then the aircraft's quite happy to lift. Then we'll raise the undercarriage, hit the landing gear warn switch just to clear the alarm that's going on there. Oops, and then other way we'll put the flaps up as well there. As you can see, when we put the flaps up, the nose starts to dip with the takeoff trim. So again, just using the hat switch here, I'll just start trimming the aircraft out so that she climbs up quite naturally by herself. Now I do have a full load on here. I've got Mavericks, I've got LGBs, GBUs, and rockets, and all of the pods and things like that. So now this is in the normal configuration. So I wanted to kind of show how the aircraft handles when it's fully loaded. And to be honest, it handles like a pig. So as we're climbing up here, our speed's coming up, so we're just passing about 2,000 feet there. And what I'll do is just a quick roll here to show the roll rate. So that's maximum roll right, and as you can see, it's not lightning quick. Just alarm there telling us that we're overstressing the aircraft a little bit. It's not lightning quick, but it definitely kind of does the job. Now the next thing that we need to talk about is navigation. Now navigation in the A10 really can't be simpler. Now you've got the TAD here, or a Tactical Awareness Display, and as long as that you've programmed in a navigational route in the mission planner or anything like this, then that will show your flight plan there. So I'll just make the TAD the sensor point of interest, which is now forgive me here, there's a lot of terminology going on here, and this is where it all starts getting a bit complex. So I believe it's coolie hat left long, if I remember that right, is what used to make things sensor point of interest. So as you can see, there's a box around the TAD there which shows me that sensor point of interest. So if I go coolie hat up short, yep, there we go, sorry, short, then that makes the HUD the point of interest. Then I can use that to cycle around my navigation points, and then you get all of the navigation information coming up there in the bottom right hand corner of the HUD. So I'll set waypoint 2 there to my active waypoint, and then you get a lovely little arrow there pointing you kind of towards waypoint 2, which is in front of us there. Now I never put in height information, so it's down on the deck, but I don't really want to follow that because I don't fancy swimming. So that's just on the way to waypoint 2. Now one thing that the A10 does have, which is really handy, is an autopilot. Now it's not a route following autopilot, but it is it's got several modes on there, so we'll have a look at that now. So down here is the autopilot controls. You've got engage and disengage. You've got alt heading, path hold, and alt hold. Now path hold, if we change that up to path hold and then we engage that, oops, what this does is that it just holds the aircraft on the current path that the aircraft is flying. So at the moment I'm in a slight climb and I'm flying in this direction, and the autopilot will try to keep us in that attitude. Now if we switch this down to altitude and heading hold, if we engage the autopilot again, it'll hold us on this heading and on our current altitude. So that's what that does. And then you've got altitude hold. So if we move that down into altitude mode, and then we engage the autopilot again, it'll hold our altitude, but we still have the option of turning the aircraft. So we can roll the aircraft, and then the aircraft will actually kind of maintain altitude for us until a certain point. Now if you throw the aircraft about too much, you'll get a...
Warning, autopilot.
Yep, there we go. So if you throw the aircraft about too much and the autopilot can't control the aircraft or keep control, you get a warning there saying warning autopilot, and then that's the autopilot being disengaged. So there we go. That's now waypoint 3 switched over as we got into waypoint 2 there. And then yeah, this is us kind of flying in the A10. Now it is a fairly docile aircraft. You know, it seems to have paused, which is absolutely awesome. So there we go. A slight pause there, but that's just down to my computer being a bit poo. Okie dokie. So I was just resetting the recording there, so you might have got a slight jerk. But the reason I do that is when the game pauses, I often find that the software I use to record gets like major bugs and things like this, and it all goes a bit horribly wrong. So anyways, this is us flying our route. And then as you can see down there, I've actually got my targeting range. So if I turn on my my targeting point there, if I've got my waypoint set to be the sensor point of interest, which is Cooley Hat along, I think it is, I don't know, anyways, oops. Yep, so we'll make that sensor point of interest. If I kick in there, there you go. So then we can point the TGP at our targeting point, and then you can have a look around. You can zoom in and target things like that. Zoom right in, then you can read the registration plates on aircraft from miles and miles and miles away. So at the moment we can't actually see the aircraft with the naked eye. It's got the autopilot on there, that's why it's resisting me in the turn. But using the TGP or targeting pod there, you can actually zoom in and have a look at what's going on there. So I'll just look in the TGP so you can have a look down the cockpit there and see what's going on. So that's a tiny little dot. That's the aircraft that's just down there on the left hand side of the runway there. So the targeting pod is probably one of my favourite things about the A10. It just makes life kind of so much easier finding targets and doing target acquisition and things like this. But we'll get back into that in a later video. In fact, the next video I think I might go into using the targeting pod and bombing using Mavericks and things like that. So what we'll do now is that we'll just navigate back to the airfield, then we'll have the landing. So again, just line up here, heading back to our waypoint 3. Then we'll just engage the autopilot here, so the aircraft's going to keep us flying nice and straight and steady. Now, another thing I wanted to show you is how to use the ILS. Now, with ILS, you know, often you might come into situations where you're flying at night or in low weather or things are fogged out, so you'll want to use the ILS in order to actually land safely. So doing the same thing that we did before of bringing up our divert fields. In fact, if we switch this to other modes, and then we can bring up our divert information there, which is actually still on the screen. So if we bring up CDU there, as you can see, our ILS frequency is 110.30. So our ILS box is actually down here. So what you need to do is, using your rotator switch, is set this to 110. It is 110? Did I remember that right? 110.30. So we'll just get this switched to 110.30 now. There we go. And then we can power it on by moving that there. Now we're getting a beeping which says that that's active, but you can turn down the volume. There we go. So that's the volume turned down on that, but ultimately that beeping says that it is picking up the ILS. Won't turn off. So I'm just trying to turn down the volume there because that's really, really freaking annoying. Okay, so there we go. So that's the ILS now set. Then in the modes here you've got steer point, anchor point, TACAN and ILS. We can switch that to ILS mode. There we go. Sorry, I paused my camera there, being an idiot. And then what we'll do, oops, in fact we'll keep that on steering point at the moment. Yes. Yeah, sorry, I'm getting myself all in the middle of the muddle here. So we'll start heading back towards our airfield. So we'll head to steer point 1, and then we'll start descending down to about 2,000 feet. Ready for a landing. So what we can do there, since I'm in a steady descent, I'll actually switch this to path hold. Set the autopilot on, and then that'll keep us in this descent and on this heading as we head in towards the runway. Now, as we know that the course bearing for the runway is 13, so we can bring this around to course 13 there, 013. That doesn't seem right, does it? What am I doing? Yeah, that's surely right. Well, 13 and 31. Maybe I'm missing something. But anyways, so the runway's over there anyway, so we can set the HSI there, and as you can see, the HSI is starting to come into alignment as we're starting to line up with the ILS. So I'll just kick off the autopilot and we'll start descending here a little bit more. We'll also start coming off on the power. And then we'll start lining up ready for the ILS, which should kick in any moment now. Yep, there we go. Now we can uncage the ILS indicator needles there, or navigation indicator needles. So that's us aligned there, but I think that we're actually pretty high. So what we're going to do now is put our flaps all the way down. Then we'll start bringing out our brakes. Now, I like having full brakes when I come into land. So that's the undercarriage going down, sorry about that, so I'll just clear that alarm there. Okie dokie, so that's us on the ILS. Oops, in fact I forgot to set that to ILS, so that's us now on the ILS. So we can start following needles. So I'm quite low here, so I need to start powering up. Now your approach speed, about 150, touchdown about 120 if I remember rightly. So I'll just start trimming this out as well for the flaps down and gear down kind of attitude that we're taking. So I'm still a bit low here, and we're, according to the ILS, we're slightly right, or slightly left. Let's pull this over to the right and then see if the needles come right. Yeah, so we're slightly left. Oops. The ILS needle's jumping everywhere. I don't know what the hell's going on there. Oops. So I'm actually starting to stall out here, so I need more power. That's because I've got the brakes all the way out. So yeah, keep your approach about 150. Now, as you can see, you've got that light there. When that's low, it means that you're kind of nose down. When it's green, you're on the right sort of approach. Just start powering down and keep the floating airplane just off the end of the runway there, or about halfway up the runway, and then you can't go really wrong with that. And again, just following the needles down here. I don't know what's going on with that alignment needle. I might need to check that.
Altitude, altitude.
Yes, thank you for that. So we're kind of coming in for a landing here. We're slightly lower. In fact, yeah, we've got 3 red dots, so we're very low. But we're doing okay. There we go. So that's 2 dots on the ball there. So now we're actually high. Don't like this thing. Navigation modes with this thing, nah, they annoy me. But anyways, we're coming in for a visual landing. So we'll start backing off on the throttle here. And then we'll flare out, and then hopefully we won't break anything as we touch down. So nice gentle landing, and then we'll keep the nose up here, just to keep ourselves aero braking as we come down the runway here. And again, trying not to drag the tail on ground. So that's us down nice and safe. And then as we start slowing down here, we can start using the brakes a little bit just to help ourselves slow down. And then when you come below 50 knots, you can just re-enable the nose wheel steering in order to help you actually kind of turn on the runway. And bring the brakes in. Oops, wrong button. There we go, Shift B. Bring those in. And then we'll start heading back towards the parking area.
Halt 1-1. Taxi to parking.
Okay. You gotta love it. So we'll just taxi in here and then we'll park up. Okay, and that's us down. So what we'll do is that we'll just shut down our engines here and prepare for lots of noise. There we go. So that's now the aircraft's kind of shut off further way down. Yes, thank you, Master Caution. So we'll just pick our canopy up here and then extend our boarding ladder so that the pilot can get out. I do love that feature. So I hope that you've learned something in this. There is a lot to the A10, there really is, and I know I'm only just kind of scratching the surface here of what the A10 can do. But I really do hope that you know that you are taking away from or taking away something from this. I'm honestly forgetting how to speak English while I'm doing this. So next time out, I think what we'll do is that we'll look at using the targeting pod a bit further, programming the weapons, and also maybe a few weapon releases, how to use like the laser guided bombs, the GPS guided bombs or JDAMs, the Mavericks, and a bit of air-to-air. Now, if there's anything I'm forgetting, if there's anything that you'd like to know, if there's anything else I could be doing, then by all means kind of let me know, and I'll see what I can do. Like I said, and I'll keep saying this, there is a hell of a lot to this module. There really is. It's a scary amount of stuff to go over. But really all I want to be doing with these videos here is just kind of really going over the basics. Just enough so that you can take off, fly around, kind of use the aircraft as you want to and have a bit of fun, rather than going into all of the really hairy, scary stuff on how to use this aircraft. So anyways, I hope that you've enjoyed this, and I really do hope that you're learning something from this. And yeah, stand by for part 3. So this is Smudge saying thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.